Hello. There you are.
What's up, man?
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jude Sandoval. I am the Denver Tech Center host for the CERTUS Professional Network, and I'm here with Phil Pelto, owner of CERTUS Professional Networks and Firestorm Professional Networking Organizations. How you doing, Phil?
Awesome, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for putting this together today. Phil, if you don't know, has read the entire CARES Act because you are because you're cooped up in your house, right?
Totally. Yeah. Why not? It's some late reading.
It's pretty amazing. So we'll get into this quickly because you know everybody's time is valuable, even if you are cooped up in your house. A couple of things. I have a chat box here. You can see if you would like to pose a question to Phil, feel free to type that in there. It doesn't go out to everybody. It's just going to come to Phil and I'll be monitoring those while Phil goes through and presents on the act. Also, we've included some information at the top of the chat box. Anything that Phil covers today is pretty much on that website as well. So feel free to click and save that link.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, we have added the PDFs for the CARE Act, as well as the more information for small businesses about the CARE Act. So Phil's going to run through a bunch of that stuff, but in case you zoned out or some of the kids came and distracted you from paying attention, you can jump on that website or access either one of those PDFs. So, Phil, let's get rolling here on the presentation. And
sounds good.
I'll take it away.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for having me on. And I picked out some stuff that I thought was important to me and important to some of the small business owners that I hang out with, and a lot of the people in CERTUS and Firestorm. So, if there's stuff that we don't cover in this, again, like Jude said, pop some questions in. Happy to chat about all this stuff. So, the end all be all resource is the actual bill. So I see a lot of stuff flying around, CNN said this and Forbes said that and the chamber said this, and just look it up. It's pretty easy. You can go to the 880 page document and do a little find function and type in whatever it is that you're looking for, and you can read what the actual law is. So
now everybody's got the resource, so they can just pull it up on their phone and answer any question they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And what else are you doing? Sitting around watching Tiger King.
Oh God, please.
So I put these kind of in order of what I thought was most pressing. The first thing is this economic injury disaster loan, and this is something where they've earmarked a bunch of funds to be doled out to small businesses, and you can actually find it. It's I put in here that it's section 1110 in the bill. And it's applicable for everybody. So sole props, independent contractors, LLCs, S Corps, anybody that's a small business under 500 employees. They are running this application through the SBA, and the link is at the top there. It's covid19relief.sba.gov. And they have there's actually a little disclaimer when you fill out the application. It says it might take like 2.5 hours or something like that. I actually went through the whole process. It's 4 pages, and it took me literally 5 minutes. So it's not super hard. And I think everybody, if you're experiencing any sort of hardship or think you might experience any sort of hardship, go through and check this out. So,
Phil, is this what they're calling the payroll protection?
Nope, that's loan? The next one.
Okay, so this is different than the payroll protection program.
This is different. So this one is a little bit. It's a loan, and there's an a box that you check in the application if you are interested in an advance. That advance is $10,000. It says up to $10,000. That's kind of vague, and it's also vague in the bill. But it says up to $10,000. I don't know how they determine what the up to part is. But you actually fill in your bank account information in the application, so they have a place to direct deposit that money. Again, it says in the bill, once that application is received and approved, the funds should be available within 3 days. I know that the execution on all this stuff has been a little wanting. So the funds are not available 3 days after you fill out the application. I filled it out on Monday, and it's a week ago Monday, and so here we are Tuesday, and I haven't heard anything from the SBA. So that said, I'm not sure what the timeline or the time horizon looks like in this stuff. But it's better to get it in sooner rather than later, because I think these funds are they're not going to last forever. So and when I filled out my application last Monday, I think 400,000 people had already done it, and there was another 500,000 the next day.
Wow.
So, and I'm actually tracking that by the loan number that they give you, your application number. And then I've asked my friends that have done it later in the week, what was your application number? And we've kind of tracked how many people are filling out applications. And it's so anyway.
So do you have a sense from anybody else that you've spoken to how long this might take, or has anybody got any feedback from the SBA as a response as to what's happening? Somebody
called yesterday and sat on hold for a couple of hours with the SBA. And finally, when they talked to a live person, they said that, they've just been slammed. The application was in process, and, they were fast tracking his application, whatever that meant. And,
sure. They went to the file cabinet and grabbed his.
Yeah. It's so I have no idea what the timeline looks like, and I'm sure we're going to get some vague responses like that. But anyway, I wouldn't let that deter anybody from going and filling out this application. So you can get up to $200,000 with no personal guarantee on the funds. They do pull a credit report, and it's based on your credit, but there's not a personal guarantee attached to it. You just don't have to fill out a boatload of paperwork. They're relying on self affirmations from the applicants on a lot of this stuff. So
what were they requesting as far as documentation from you?
In the initial application, nothing. It's really, tell them how much revenue you have, tell them how much your expenses and cost of goods sold are. And if there's some other line items, if you're a nonprofit or a religious organization. But I think for most of the people on this call and the people that I'm, talking with, that's not applicable fields to fill out. So yeah, it's just here's how much revenue we did in the last 12 months. Here's what our cost of goods sold were. And as far as documentation, there's nothing. So,
okay. So then they will advance you up to the 10 grand just based upon your application. And then they're going to review that application. I'm assuming they're going to ask for some further documentation for anything upwards of the $10,000, correct?
Right. And the interesting thing about the advance is forgivable. In fact, the way the bill language is, it says that even if you're denied for a loan, you don't have to pay back the $10,000 advance.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
that could be some immediate, well, not immediate because it's been more than 7 days for you, but some short-term relief for small business owners that have good credit.
Yep. Yeah. And what what the actual qualifications are and what they're looking at, I don't really know. That's one of the sort of gray areas, or black hole, if you want to be totally honest about it. In the language, they don't really speak to that, but the SBA, my impression is that they're slammed with applications, but they really are wanting to and trying to get money in the hands of small business owners. So,
right. There was a question if the application can be tracked. Is there a tracking process, or is it kind of like your tax return? You send it in, and then the only way to track it is, yes, we've got it. No, we don't have it, and we'll let you know.
Right. So there's an application number that you get, and that's pretty much the only thing that you have to track it. And you can call the SBA and ask them about what the status is. But again, like I said, my friend did that yesterday and sat on hold for a couple of hours and got okay, we're fast tracking it, whatever the heck that means. So I don't know that there's really a good process in place to track applications. And mind you, I think we need to just have our expectations set the right way. The SBA processed, I want to say 60,000 loans in all of 2019.
Yeah.
And on Monday, I was somewhere in the 400,000 range of people that had applied for this. So,
wow.
And they're going to, I would imagine that this goes upwards of, 10 million applications, probably even more than that. There's 30 plus million small businesses in the United States. And I would imagine that a lot of them, if not all, are going to request some type of assistance. So
you're saying, imagine the DMV on its worst day times 1,000. That's what you're saying, or 4, exactly. Or no, 6, 8, 20, like 8 times 8. Gotcha.
Yeah, they're not going to be quick about this.
Okay.
So, just set your expectations appropriately and accordingly. So, anyway, so that's kind of the rundown on the economic injury disaster loan and grant. The loan sizes, they don't cap out at 200,000. That's actually the limit with no personal guarantee. But I believe this loan size can go up to 20 million. Obviously they're not handing that out to sole proprietors, but there's a lot of funds available here. So, all right, the next thing is what you were asking about, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP. Now, this one is really designed to keep people employed, and that is this one is administered through an actual bank. And this one has been something that's, a little bit more tricky with the application process and, how that all is happening because it's run through a commercial bank. And so when they were trying to put together the application process, banks were really scrambling to get this all done and collect information in a timely fashion and everything. So, they said that you're supposed to be able to apply for it on Friday morning. I think there might have only been one bank, like Bank of America, that was taking applications on, actual applications on Friday morning. A lot of the other banks just had sort of a link saying, I'm interested, and email me when you guys get your system up and running. There's a lot of banks that are doing this. There's SBA approved lenders that are running it. And you can go to your bank if you're, in a SBA approved bank, or there's some banks that are taking outside applications. Now, because of the volume of, the response they were going to get, I believe that a lot of the banks were sticking with their existing client base first.
Right.
And if you had an existing lending relationship with them, they were prioritizing those over new applications. And then also I talked to US Bank about it, and US Bank was accepting applications over the weekend for single owner businesses and single owner businesses that were LLCs and S corps, but they had not started accepting applications for sole proprietors and independent contractors at that point. But this is really, it's, like I said, it's meant to keep people employed. They give out loans up to $10 million, and the proceeds need to be used for payroll, for interest on loan obligations, mortgage stuff, related to your business. And so basically the main chunk of that is going to be payroll, and they look back at a 12-month average in 2019. How much was your payroll? You take 2.5 times your average monthly payroll, and that's the loan amount that they'll give you. And if you keep your payroll the same for 8 weeks, so they look down the road 8 weeks from now, if your payroll is the same over the last couple of months, they will forgive the portion that was used for payroll expenses for that 8 weeks.
Correct. So to be clear, this also applies to sole proprietors. And your payroll would be you.
Right.
So that would be basically what your revenues are, what you're paying yourself, or what your income was over that time period times 2.5. So sole proprietors can apply for this and do qualify for applying for this.
Correct. Okay. And, like I said, the banks, depending on who you bank with, I think there was a phasing process for who they were accepting applications from at what time, but that it is available to sole props, independent contractors, and businesses.
Yep. And what I've read over the weekend and yesterday and this morning, it just seems like it's a little bit chaotic right now. Some of the big banks, like you said, had stuff going on Friday. Some got them going over the weekend, some yesterday, some still don't have them up. And it's unclear how they're going to process applications. You alluded to just LLCs and S corporations and sole proprietors being at the end of the list. There's been some concern about smaller businesses not having the access to the funds as quickly as the larger businesses, et cetera. This is all stuff we don't know yet how it's going to pan out.
Right. Yeah. And again, there's so many moving pieces with all this, and it's all changing. What's in the law does not really speak to how it's all going to be administered and the logistics of making it all happen. So that's all sort of where the question marks are.
Right. But would you agree a good idea would be to get an application in on any of these sooner than later, particularly if you have a banking relationship with somebody that you can get the process going?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think that, even if you feel like you're not experiencing a hardship at this time, but you anticipate the possibility of that happening down the road, do it sooner rather than later. So, these things are going to take some time, and you want to make sure that you're, in line for it. So,
yep, that's great advice, Phil, because we don't know what's going to happen. We're really only know what's going to happen this week or next week, or actually in a few weeks with the shutdowns.
Yeah, absolutely. So, cool. And this one, there's a lot of information out there, but again, you can look into the plan in the actual document. So, the next one is mortgage relief, and that's something that I put in there because if you are experiencing some sort of hardship, this is another thing that was written into the bill, where you can apply for a forbearance on your federally backed loans. You can request a forbearance of 180 days, and obviously they're not just going to erase those payments. Those payments get tacked on to the end of the loan. So if you get a 6-month break right now, you're going to pay 6 months at the end. So interest is still accruing, and so that there's not a break on the interest. And then there's also a moratorium on foreclosures for 60 days. So up until May 18th, they can't foreclose. So this is something you have to contact your lender about and request for a forbearance, and whatever their process looks like, documentation and stuff like that. I can't speak to that, but it is an option that's available to people, and one that I think could provide some temporary relief if you have a federally backed loan. So.
Yep. Being in the real estate business, I have heard a little bit about this. The big thing to note is that the payments aren't going away. So they will be basically, it's a pause, and it will be added to the back end of your loan. So it will continue to accrue interest like you stated, but it's just going to give you the opportunity to have some breathing room for the short period of time until things get better.
Yep. And you can also, you need to contact your lender and ask what their particular requirements are, but this is not exclusive for primary residences. It can also be a second home or a multifamily property as well. It doesn't have to be just a single family dwelling. So
we got a great comment here too from Travis. And he stated that he talked to his lender, and that his lender has said that the amounts deferred becomes due in total, or it can be paid back over a short period of time. So make sure to find out from your lender what their terms are going to be to put your payments on pause.
Yep.
And another comment just said it pushes back your amortization schedule when you go into forbearance, which could then potentially cost you more money on the back end. So something to consider. This is one of those things that if you don't need to do it, it might not make sense because it will potentially cost you more money in the long run, or push off a difficult situation to a later date. So just make sure I would suggest talk to your lender, or talk to a lender that knows what's going on with this, and be very careful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you don't need to take advantage of this, I think this one is one of those ones that's a little tricky. So, all right. So the other one is student loan forbearance. So, if you're buried in student loans like a lot of the population, and especially if you have some professional degree or you're a doctor or something like that, they're giving you a break on student loan payments until September 30th of this year. No interest will accrue during that time period, and actually, if you choose to continue to make your payments, all the payments are going to principal, because they are stopping all the interest accruals for that time period as well. So it only applies to federally backed loans, D and B. And if you have student loans, you know what that is. You'll log into your account, and it'll have a little letter at the end of the account, or maybe it's at the beginning. But there's some that are administered through private sources. So or you acquire them through private sources. So those are not part of this. But if it's a federally backed loan, they're stopping the interest, and you don't have to make your payments until September 30th. So that can be a nice little reprieve on some of that stuff, especially if you have a big loan balance. Unemployment benefits. This is something that obviously we've seen some massive unemployment numbers in the last couple of weeks. I think like 10 million people have filed for unemployment.
Yep.
So the additions here are an extra 13 weeks onto the previous state maximum, whatever your state maximum was. And I believe in Colorado was 26 weeks. So it makes it 39 weeks of coverage now. And they're tacking on an additional $600 per week to whatever the state benefit would have been previously. And they're expanding coverage for independent contractors and self-employed people. So again, there's some resources in that link that we put up to the, I wrote like a blog post on this. There's a link to the Colorado Department of Labor, and you can figure out how to apply for those benefits online. But they're just beefing up those benefits a lot for.
Right. My understanding is that 600 per week will be a short-term benefit through the end of July. Is that correct?
That is a great question. I don't remember exactly what it said on that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's till the end of July, and they're also going to backdate it so that it's a total of 16 weeks of that $600.
Okay, awesome. I will take your word on it, so I don't have to spend time going through.
No, don't take my word on it. Utilize the resources that we give you. I'll reiterate again.
Yep.
Since we're a part way through, there's a link at the above of the chat box stuck to the top there. It has everything that Phil is going through today, so feel free to click on that, and that has links to other resources as well. And we've also added as an attachment in the CARES Act, the full text of that, as well as another resource for small businesses on the CARES Act. And additionally, we will send out a replay of this. So if you want to go through and you want to go back and hear what Phil had to say about something specific, you can do that on the replay.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out and ask me any questions outside of this too.
And if you have a question now, pop in that chat box. It's all private, so it's just coming to Phil and I, and we will do our best to answer those questions.
Awesome. Okay, so I think that was pretty much all the highlights that I had for now. Does anybody else? I guess we can open it up for questions and see if anybody has anything in particular or wants to chat about another.
So we have a question that says, can we still apply for unemployment if we have a little income? And I'm not exactly sure specifically what a little income means, but my understanding is, so at this point, anybody can apply for unemployment, whether you are W-2'd or 1099s.
Correct.
And they did not have, well, as of this weekend, they weren't accepting the 1099s. Now, that may have changed yesterday. I didn't check to see, at least in Colorado, if they are doing that. They have created a system where they're allowing people by their alphabetically by their last name to apply on certain days. So you'll have to take a look at the Colorado Unemployment Insurance website to know that. You can always, having been on the employer side of this unemployment, you can always apply for unemployment. You can potentially get denied if you don't have enough income, or you can't verify what you've or you can't document what you've put and verify what you've put into the system. But I guess I would say it wouldn't hurt what you're stating as a little income means that you just don't have a lot of income. Now, they base the percentages of what you are able to as a benefit to acquire based upon your income. So, it's a percentage. So it may not be significant enough for you to go through it or not. I don't know.
Yeah. I would say go through, and a lot of those questions will probably be answered through the application process. And you can always abandon the application process when you're in it if you realize that it's not going to work out.
Yep. So there's another question. Are the stimulus checks a tax credit for 2020 taxes owed?
That's a great question. And if I understand it correctly, if I understand the question correctly, they're asking about, are we actually going to get cash in hand, or are we going to get a credit for our 2020 taxes? And the stimulus checks are actual cash in hand. Like if you filed your taxes already for 2019 and you put a bank account number in there to have your tax refund, if you got a refund direct deposited, they're just going to deposit whatever amount of money you get into that bank account. And as I understand it, those were going to start April 17th, I want to say. And
so I read something that they were going to start sometime this week, by the end of the week or early next week.
Okay.
But, again, that's fluid.
Yeah, yeah.
And also my understanding is that this is not going to be taxable income. So we're not going to get a 1099 miscellaneous on this. This is strictly a cash subsidy.
Right, exactly. Yep. And the details of that depend on your 2019 income and also, how many kids you have, if you're married, filing jointly, yada, yada, yada. But all that, all the particulars are in the text of the act, and you can look those up. So.
Right. So we got another question here about unemployment. The question is, I've read that you can get unemployment if you are forced to quit to protect vulnerable family members, and there are rights for employees if they are asked to break social distancing norms. Any info on about either of these? So I don't know, Phil, and maybe you do, of any resources for this. However, I have read that at the moment for unemployment, they're not going to be checking if you are requiring you to be looking for employment. And it really sounds to me like it's going to be very loose and vague at the moment, which I guess could be good or bad.
Right. Yeah. I don't remember reading anything about this in the act, but again, if you can go in there and put some key terms in, for in this question in particular, I would say I would search for the word vulnerable and see if that pops up in the act at all, and do a little bit of digging in there. I don't recall reading anything about that, but I could have glossed over it. So
yeah, again, there are a lot of things that are kind of up in the air. We're not sure how they're going to handle them. They're being very vague about it. So, we're just going to have to do the best that we can with the information that we're given. There's another question here. My furlough begins on the 17th. The unemployment site said that we should wait until the last day of employment to avoid delays. Can you speak to this? Is it best to do it now or wait? I can speak to this, having been on this, the employment end of this. Wait until the last day, because what will happen is eventually they will cross-reference with your last day to when you filed, and doing so. And if you've applied sooner and the numbers don't match up, then you could potentially have to pay back some benefits that they have already paid to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one.
How about things like payroll taxes? Is there any information on whether businesses will be taxed during this time? That's a great question.
Yeah, that one actually, to be honest with you, I glossed over that one because I don't do my own payroll, and I pay somebody else to do it. And I was like, not my problem. My so I know there is a big section in there about payroll taxes, and I was trying to get information that I didn't really know about, or was more pertinent to me. So I remember seeing it, and again, with the resources, I would just type in payroll taxes and do a search for that, because there was a big section on that. I don't know exactly what it said though. So I can't be more help on that question, but I don't want to give you bad or wrong information. So.
Okay. Excellent. So let's see here. I don't think we have any more questions. So I want to give a plug real quick before we wrap up here, Phil, for the CERTUS meetings as well as the Firestorm meetings. We are still meeting virtually. So find visit the Firestorm. What's the Firestorm website?
Just myfirestorm.com.
Myfirestorm.com or CERTUS.com.
Yeah, I think it's CERTUSnetwork.com.
CERTUSnetwork.com, and find any one of the meetings. We're still meeting virtually via Zoom, and it's kind of cool. It's kind of exciting. It's kind of different doing that. But
yeah. But it's a great way to stay connected and meet some new folks and maintain the relationships that you have with the existing folks. And we all need to stick together in this whole thing and help each other out any way we can, even if that's just seeing each other's smiling faces, or commiserating about something, or giving each other a little bit of motivation. Whatever the small benefit is, it's just great to stay connected with folks and chat and know that everything, the sky isn't falling. We're still gonna be fine, and I really enjoy the time that I spend with folks like you and other people, my friends and people in our network. And I find a lot of motivation and inspiration in that. And it's great to hear success stories, because if you get too far inside your own head, sitting at home and watching the news and all sorts of crazy stuff like that, you can go down a rabbit hole pretty quick. And it's good to see other people and realize that life is still happening. It's just maybe happening in the confines of our house and backyard, but it's life goes on, and we need to remember that this is this will pass. So
absolutely, and that's the premise of the CERTUS and the Firestorm networks, is deeper relationships through our businesses, and this is a great opportunity for us to do it. And I was really pleased. One of my fellow CERTUS hosts invited me to a online virtual poker game on Friday night. So, looking for stuff to do on Friday night, there's nothing anymore, right?
Yeah, right.
And, so that was really cool. There's a lot of cool things, virtual happy hours going on and stuff. So, maybe we'll be looking at, I think we're looking at to do some of that with CERTUS as well. So keep an eye out for all of that.
Yep, definitely.
So thanks, Phil. Appreciate all of your expertise and taking the time to read all 880 pages of that act, and very, very helpful today.
No sweat. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, take care.
All right. Cheers.